here is Jason Lengstorf. He might be the famous Learn with Jason now, but he was once 17-year-old. Look at that. Justin Timberland, frosted bits. That hairstyle was really popular in the 90s. I really want to see 17-year-old Jason and Josh battle it out. But honestly, Jason is one of the coolest people I know. He used to be a singer, a lead singer actually, in a band. And last year, Jason rented an entire studio to work on documentaries, podcasts. Maybe we'll film comedy sketches in the future together. Yes? That's so exciting. And it's really, really awesome to see Jason living the dream and just pursuing all the passion projects. Bring back the fun to coding. It's Jason.
All right. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday. We've been getting our heads stuffed with code for 2 days straight. Who's got room for a little bit more? All right. I don't have anything useful to say, so buckle in. I'm just going to find my... So, if you, like me, are terminally online, it might feel like things are pretty bleak out there right now. We've got FOMO, we've got hot takes, we've got absolutist opinions, we've got personal experience offered as universal truth. It's constant, it's crushing, and if you spend too long in your For You feed, you might feel the urge to flee. Where are we going here? There we go. Maybe you think it's time to get out of tech. Maybe you want to go live on a farm, leave the stress behind and just... Maybe these computers were a mistake after all. But then, we think about it a little bit harder. You realize that farming is a whole lot of work. So, never mind. We're going to make this tech thing work. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about how to make work fun. But before we get into that, I'm going to do a little bit of covering my ass. I'm going to do a reply guide disclaimer. I don't think work needs to be fun. Work is work. Work is a means to an end. For better or worse, being alive is expensive, and jobs are how most of us make a living, which is one of the most depressing phrases in the English language. And it's not who we are. It's not why we exist. However, we don't need to make work into our identity, right? We don't need to make it into a substitute for hobbies or a substitute for human relationships. But when we look at the math, the idea of not having fun at work looks pretty awful. So let's take a look at an average work week, all right? 7 days, 168 hours. And if we look at how that breaks down, we spend about a third of it sleeping, right? And then we've got our free time, evenings and weekends. And the rest of that time, we spend at work. And now this graph here, this is assuming that we have boundaries. Because if we're only working 40 hours, that's what this looks like. If we're actually prioritizing our health and we're sleeping 8 hours per night, that's what that looks like. But for some of us, and I'm not going to point any fingers, sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and it starts to look a little more like this. And I say unpaid work because after you've worked 40 hours, you're volunteering, right? So, work is 24% of your adult life. But actually, that's not even accurate. That's not accurate. Because we all know, we learned in childhood, that sleep is just time travel to the next morning. So work is actually 36% of your waking life. You are at work for a third of the time that you are conscious, from the time you reach working age until whatever age we're finally allowed to retire, which seems to be going up every other year. I know I said this was going to be fun. It's not fun yet. It's going to get there. We're going to get there, I promise. So, I feel like it's important at this point to remind everybody that I'm not your boss. I am not your dad, and most importantly, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just your friend, Jason, and I want to talk about my story. None of this is advice. These are just things that I do that make my life a little bit happier. So, let's talk a little bit about steps to have a good career in tech. Okay, this is a very complicated system. 1, learn some tech skills. 2, get a tech job. 3, minimize voluntary suffering. Some of you, I think, might be at the get a tech job. Who's looking for a job right now? All right. Who's hiring right now? Did everybody take good notes? There's like 2 people in here. Get them. But for those of us who are already working in the field, I think a lot of us are here. We're at these jobs. We spend a third of our waking time there. And we spend most of our free time talking about how much we don't like the work time, which really means that we're spending even more time at work because it's living rent-free in our heads, right? So I believe that our lives are the product of our choices. Okay, so let's take a little philosophy break here, tiny philosophy break. I don't get to choose what happens outside of my control, right? The world is going to happen. I have to live in it. The vast majority of people and companies and weather events and all the other things that happen, I can only, in the most minute ways, influence. What I do get to influence is whether or not I let the things outside of my control ruin my life. I get to choose how I respond to it. So, until I can afford not to work, it's out of my control. I have to work. My choice isn't whether I work, it's how I choose to work, right? So we can think, oh, work is a terrible burden. Or we can look at that same job and we can think, work is a fun challenge, right? And these are choices, and I know every work situation is different, and I know I've had terrible bosses, I've had terrible jobs. So I know, again, this is my story, right? I'm not arguing that a bad situation can be a good one. There are times when it just doesn't work. But in a lot of cases, we opt in or out to the suffering. We can look at it as something we can control, that we can change, and we can make choices that make things just a little bit better, right? So, I choose fun. I got a long time left in this career, and I don't want to be sad for most of it. So what is fun? In a professional context, what is fun? I see it as the center of a Venn diagram that's got 3 fun factors in it. The first one is I want to be challenged, right? I want to be learning, growing, doing something that's pushing me outside of my comfort zone and making me a little bit better. I want to know that I'm building skills that are beyond the skills that I had yesterday, 1% better every day, right? I want to be exploring. I want to be going places that I haven't been. I want to be trying something new that I've never done before. I want to be opening new doors and seeing what's behind them. And mostly just setting out on new adventures. What new adventures can I go on today? And they can be small. I love small adventures. Can I learn to make a cheesecake? That's a small adventure, right? And little things like that give us a lot of joy if we treat them like that. If we greet every day with like, what little adventures can I go on? That's so much more fun than going, fuck, what do I have to do today? Right? And so the third thing is connection. I don't want to do this alone. That's why I'm here. That's why I want to see all your smiling faces. It's because I want to collaborate with my peers. I want to share ideas with my friends. And I want to co-create with my community. This is a core value for me. And it's one of the things that's given me the most value in my life, professionally and otherwise. So if we get challenge, exploration, or connection, any one of these 3 things can be fun on its own. But when we find that project that gets all 3 of these happening at the same time, that's where the real magic happens. That's where we start having real fun, right? So, how do we have fun at work, right? How do you get fun projects at work, right? That's the thing, is I think a lot of people, they look at other folks and the stuff they get to do. You might look at what I do for work. You might look at what somebody like, I don't know, John Pham is doing all this cool design stuff. And, you know, somebody like Henri is running around telling everybody about how cool the performance stuff is. You know, each of us has a job. You might look at it and you go, dang, that's fun. I wish I did fun stuff. But I want to talk about how you can make just about anything fun. And I want to do that by telling you a true story. When I was at Netlify, it's February, it's 2022, I'm a VP. Our marketing site, our core app, and our docs are in 3 separate code bases under 3 different orgs, and they're different enough that they may as well have been different companies. I don't know if anybody remembers this, if anybody's a Netlify user, but there was a point in time in the early 2020s when they literally didn't even look like they knew that the other sites existed. They were very vastly different. And this was a years-old pain point, but we never fixed it. And it wasn't because we didn't want to. We talked about it constantly. It came up in every meeting. But it was a Gordian knot. Anybody want to give me props for using Gordian knot in a sentence? Okay. It was a Gordian knot of ownership, legacy code, and just shipping pressure that means we always deprioritized it because we just couldn't make time for that. So it always ended up in the backlog. And when we started looking at this project, we had, and I swear I am not inflating this for story purposes, 13 stakeholders involved in these 3 code bases that would all need to be aligned for us to fix this problem. And so, as is my tradition, I volunteered to solve it. And being the very conservative estimator that I am, I estimate like an engineer, I gave myself, by promising to the entire leadership team, 1 week. So, I want all of you to imagine yourselves, this is the situation that you have just been thrust into. You have 3 code bases, 13 stakeholders, and 1 week to unify them into a state that makes it look like they're all from the same company. Close your eyes and just imagine what feeling comes to mind. I'm not hearing anybody say fun. But I'll tell you what, this was the most fun project that I did at Netlify. So here's what happened. I asked our VP of marketing if we could descend on her house in Austin, Texas. I wrangled all 13 stakeholders together. I made them fly in. I also got a number of individual contributors, enough that we were able to do the work that needed to be done, brought them to Austin, Texas. We had about 25 people in Lauren's house. Thank you so much, Lauren, if you're watching this. And we did a 5-day sprint that I named Web Cohesion Week, right? Now, during that 5 days, because we'd brought all of these people together, we worked through years, literal years, of backlog issues. We untied gnarly cross-functional collaboration challenges. We ended up creating a bunch of new shared jokes. Christy, one of our designers, made a logo for the week. We ended up with custom Slack emoji. We ended up repairing strained cross-team relationships. We ended up boosting morale. We built a lot of trust. We increased the team's sense of ownership and autonomy, and we did it while still only working 40 hours. This was not a crunch week. We worked a 9 to 5. We went out and got dinner afterward. We hung out and played games. This was not crunch mode. This was just work. We just brought everybody together, right? But most importantly, all the business speak aside, this was fun. So fun. We got to stuff a room full of smart people, agree on a target outcome, and then take off running together toward that shared goal. We did challenging work, we came up with novel solutions to complex problems, and we did it together. And in the context of work, there aren't many things that sound more fun to me, right? And so it's all in the way you approach these problems. It's all in the way that you look at what you're trying to do. And yeah, work sucks sometimes. Yeah, that manager's a pain in the ass. Yeah, that coworker never wants to do anything. But we can find ways to find the fun. We can find ways to get people aligned, and we can find ways to push things forward where we get that hard work done and we have a blast along the way. So let's do another little tiny philosophy break, because we're gonna move into the next phase of this. Because how did I get that project, right? I mean, I was a VP. I could tell people what I wanted to do, right? So how do you get to that position if you aren't a VP and you can't just go grab the CEO and say, we need to fix this, give me $50,000 to fly 30 people to Austin, Texas for a week, right? I know that not all of us can do that. So instead, let's look at smaller choices that we can make and how we can get there. So a little bit of philosophy that guides me and has guided me for a long time is that your career is a pie eating contest where the prize for winning is more pie. And that can be really depressing, or it can be the best news ever. And so I think if you take it in the positive context, you just want to be extremely clear about what kind of pie you like. If you put work out there that shows people what you can do, that shows people what you're capable of, they're going to offer you that work, right? And you can do this in several ways. If you're on the clock, you can volunteer for projects that put you in the direction that you want to go. Do you work on a team, but you want to work on the design system team? Maybe you can volunteer to help them when they're a little stretched thin and you've got a bit of extra bandwidth. Do you want to move into R&D? Maybe just build a little something that you can show to the R&D team as you notice a problem with something that you work on in your product org, right? Or if you have the luxury of spare time outside of work, build little projects that show people the kind of work that you would like to do. That becomes the resume. That becomes your menu. People see the project and go, oh, you did that? Can you do that for me? And that starts to steer you toward the type of work, the career that you want to build. So I want everybody to get your phones out, because I'm going to put this up only for a few seconds on the next slide. This is the whole secret. I'm going to tell you the whole thing. And I don't want you to miss it. This is the entire secret to my career. But yeah, I'll hold for applause. I have spent the vast majority of my career using little pockets of free time to build silly shit to make me and my friends laugh. And it has made all of the difference in what I'm able to do with my career now. And there's really good science behind this, actually. Play makes us better at learning, right? If you spend all of your time being terrified that the tech is going to change out from under you and the robots are going to take your job, and what if you wanted to learn React, but now everybody says React is bad, you have to learn Svelte or Solid or something. Wait, I just finished learning how UseEffect works, and now they're going to take it away from me? Oh my God, right? That is not a positive learning environment. You are not retaining a lot of information. You're so locked down with terror that the new information is just bouncing off of your brain, right? You're batten down the hatches at that point. If you're having fun, you'll learn things really quickly. This is why we're usually pretty good at learning things like video games, board games. If your friends want to play a game, you can pick up the rules pretty quickly. It's because you're open to it, you're enjoying yourself, and there's an incentive then to keep taking in information and retain it, because it makes the game more fun. You can do more if you know more of the rules. That is magic. So you get increased engagement, you get better retention, you get higher resilience, and you get lower stress, right? When you're playing a video game, you die all the time, right? You may have seen, I just talked to Rachel Lee on my YouTube channel about this, and she gave me my favorite metaphor for life, which is to treat it like a video game. You can't fail. You just go back to your last save point, take what you've learned, and try again. You get to keep that knowledge. If I go try something and I fail spectacularly, cool, whatever. I'm gonna figure out what went wrong. I'm gonna decide if I want to try again. Maybe I'm too embarrassed to try again. Maybe I'm gonna change and go this way instead. Or maybe I just realize, if I had done it this way instead of that way, I think I could have gotten there. Let me try, right? And then you get to go and do it. You're more resilient because you're having fun. So I want to show you a few of some of the dumb shit that I built. So this is a project called ESLint Reply Guy. And this is an ESLint project that contradicts itself. You can't win. And this is one of my favorite things that I've ever built because it's one of the only times that I got the community really excited to contribute. And a bunch of people showed up and contributed rules. And most of them were built on actual Twitter conversations, which was delightful. It was great. All right, now check this one out. This is another one of my favorites. You remember the Untitled Goose Game? So that project just hijacks all the links on a website and makes them honk instead of actually working. I thought this was really funny. And you can see here how people felt about it. My friend Jessica Tremblay was like, nobody asked for this. My friend EJ Mason said, this is the worst thing you've ever done. And they were right. And it made me so happy. That was like one of my favorite couple of days on Twitter because people were just having a blast with this and just ridiculous. I was getting ridiculed so hard. I have a live stream. I pair program with people for 90 minutes. This is an older iteration of it that I've since turned off because, as you can see, it gets a little distracting. But I wanted to see what would happen if I made it so that every time you used an emoji, that emoji that was used would fall from the top of the screen, bounce around, and then settle at the bottom of the screen for a few seconds. What I thought is that every once in a while, an emoji would fall. What actually happened is Cassidy Williams is a terrible person and would rally everyone to spam the boop emoji until we could no longer see the guest on screen, which is why I turned it off. So thank you, Cassidy. You ruined fun. But I want to go back and I want to look at some of the things that I learned on these, right? So if I go back to this one, I learned how to build an ESLint plugin. I learned about static analysis. I learned really core skills that taught me how to do useful things in the pursuit of trolling my friends, right? With this one, I'm going to skip it before it plays that sound again, but with that one, I learned about how to control the DOM. I learned about how to, take click events, how to add event listeners, remove event listeners, how to play audio in a way that was performant, and well, it wasn't performant, don't look at the code. But I learned things that I've actually been able to carry forward. I learned how physics work. I dropped out of math, like that's not my thing. I learned how to code physics here so that I could make them bounce and kind of interact with each other on the screen. I learned how to do different animation things, and I learned real time. I had to figure out how to get IRC events into JavaScript on the web so that I could do something goofy. Every single one of these things was highly applicable to future projects. And so my silly personal projects help me land fun professional projects because people see the silly shit that I build for fun, and they say, we want that for us. And we have budget. My silly personal projects help me build wonderful, inclusive communities. If you ever show up on my Discord, if you ever show up on one of my live streams, if you show up in a group that I'm in, we're going to be welcoming. We want you there. We're excited to see you. You're not going to get judged for your choice of tech. The only thing that's going to get somebody in trouble is if they come in and they're not tolerant of somebody else. And you get that by putting it out there, right? It helped me unlock an entire career path. Like, this is my job. I get to make this for money. Somebody gave me dollars for that. I dressed up Phil Hawksworth like a fucking robot. This is incredible. Look, this is my job too. This is us playing D&D. You might notice that that's my wife, Marissa. She's here somewhere. Hi, Marissa. There she is. She's a much better actress than me, so I usually give her the lead. Also, if you want to hire me, you can. That's the link. Just everybody who needs to take a picture, got it? So, a couple caveats. I think sometimes people talk about fun like fun is the opposite of hard work. That couldn't be further from the case, further from the truth. Because level of enjoyment is a sliding scale. It can be fun or not fun. And level of effort is a sliding scale. It can be hard or not hard. Those are completely unrelated metrics. You can do extremely hard work that is extremely fun, and you can do really easy work that sucks. Most of us have done a lot of the really easy work that sucks, right? So why would fun work not count? Why would fun work not be hard? Just because it doesn't feel hard doesn't mean it's not challenging. So all of this just brings me to send you off into your evening, or I guess into the next talk, because we got one more, with just a few messages of love for you all. I want you all to try to find a way, no matter what situation you're in, to follow your heart, to follow your curiosity, to follow things that give you joy, to follow the fun, and, most importantly, to follow, like, and subscribe. Thank you all so much.